After years of trying to have a child, Jayden and her husband, Michael, were overjoyed when their son, John, was born. Their happiness knew no bounds as they watched him grow, filling their home with love and laughter. John was the light of their lives, a sweet boy who had a smile that could melt hearts. When John turned 3, things began to change in subtle, unsettling ways. It started small. He would sometimes stare off into space as if watching something invisible. Jayden brushed it off, thinking it was just a phase. After all, children had vivid imaginations, didn't they? But then one night something stranger happened. Jayden woke up to a faint sound. She glanced at the clock. It was exactly 3 a.m. Groggily, she realized the sound was coming from John's room. It was the sound of laughter. Light, playful giggles echoed down the hallway. Her heart warmed, thinking of her son's innocent joy, but something felt off. Why was he awake and laughing at this hour? She quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake Michael, and tiptoed toward John's room. She paused at the door, her hand hovering over the knob as she heard another burst of giggles. Slowly, she opened the door. There, in the dim light of his nightlight, was John. He was sitting up in his bed, his eyes wide open, staring at the corner of the room. He wasn't just laughing. He was talking, mumbling in between giggles. Jayden's skin prickled. "John, sweetheart," she whispered, stepping inside. "What are you doing up so late?" John turned his head toward her, his smile still wide, but there was something vacant in his eyes. "I'm playing with my friend, Mummy." Jayden's stomach tightened. "Your friend?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "Who's your friend, John?" John pointed to the dark corner of the room, the one cloaked in shadows, untouched by the soft glow of the nightlight. "The man with the funny face. He comes to play every night." A chill ran down Jayden's spine. She quickly picked John up from the bed, glancing nervously at the corner. "It's time to go back to sleep, okay? No more playing tonight." John didn't protest, but as Jayden tucked him back in, she couldn't shake the unease that gripped her. Who was this friend he was talking about? She told herself it was just a figment of his imagination, but the thought lingered. Over the next few nights, the same pattern repeated. Every night, at exactly 3 a.m., Jayden would wake to the sound of John's laughter. Each time he was sitting up, staring at the same dark corner of the room, talking to his invisible friend. Michael, initially skeptical, brushed it off, assuring her that children often had imaginary friends, but Jayden couldn't let it go. One night, desperate for answers, she stayed awake, watching the clock as it crept toward 3 a.m. When the time came, John's laughter echoed down the hall once again. This time, she rushed into his room faster than before. She flipped on the light, her heart pounding in her chest. John sat there, his gaze fixed on the corner, but now his laughter had stopped. Slowly, he turned his head toward her, his expression blank. "Mummy," he whispered, "he's mad at you. He doesn't like the light." Jayden's blood ran cold. "Who's mad, John?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The man with the funny face," John replied, his voice unnervingly calm. "He said you're not supposed to see him." Terrified, Jayden scooped John into her arms and ran to the bedroom, waking Michael. She told him everything, her words a frantic jumble. Michael, finally seeing the fear in her eyes, agreed they needed to do something. The next day they brought in a child psychologist who reassured them that it was likely a harmless phase, just an overactive imagination. But Jayden wasn't convinced. Something was wrong, she could feel it. That night, they decided to leave a camera in John's room, hoping to capture whatever was causing his behavior. They put John to bed, and, as usual, at 3 a.m., the laughter started again. But this time, Jayden and Michael stayed in their room, watching the live feed from the camera on their phone. What they saw made their blood freeze. On the screen, John was sitting up in his bed as expected. But what they didn't expect was the dark shape that slowly appeared in the corner of the room. It was a shadow, a tall figure that seemed to flicker in and out of focus. It moved toward John, who smiled and reached out his hand as if greeting it. Michael grabbed the phone, his hands shaking, and rushed to John's room. He burst through the door, flipping on the light, but the shadow was gone. John was lying down, fast asleep, as if nothing had happened. The next morning they showed the footage to the psychologist and even a priest, but no one had an explanation for what they had seen. Desperate and scared for their son, Jaden and Michael decided to move out of the house. The day they left, as they were packing the last of their belongings, John turned to Jaden and smiled. "He's coming with us, Mummy. He says he likes our new house better." Jaden felt her heart sink, knowing that whatever had been haunting their son wasn't tied to the house. It was tied to him, and it wasn't done yet.